thrilled to have here my teacher and a very good friend, Ashana Solaris. Ashana is a co-founder, a practitioner, and trainer of Clarity Breathwork. She is also a somatic experiencing advanced practitioner, intuitive counselor, healer, dancer, certified hypnotherapist, light body teacher, sound healer, Reiki master, public speaker, and she does so much healing in the world. I had the privilege to take her training fully of the breath work and assist her in many groups. We met in the jungle of Pachamama, where I started with her training and stayed there for 3 years and assisted her in many workshops that she ran there. And I know she is a powerful healer, and I'm so happy to have her here in the summit. Welcome, Ashana.
Thank you, Nunaisi. So great to be here with you and see your passion and enthusiasm to, heal the women of the world and help us rise during this time. So I'm really honored to get to be part of your summit.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And I really want to start our session tonight by you talking about somatic experience and breathwork, because you are the master of breathwork, and so many people have mentioned breathwork on this summit. This is really a key.
So powerful.
So powerful. So I would really want you to talk about that.
Somatic experiencing and breathwork. So they go together really well. The somatic experiencing is the work of Dr. Peter Levine on how to heal the nervous system of trauma and come out of fight, flight, and freeze. And the way that it segues so beautifully with clarity breathwork in particular, because clarity breathwork is a nurturing, feminine approach to breathwork. We're not forcing, we're not pushing, we're not going for intensity. We're going for integration and resolution of what has held us back so that we can most powerfully move forward in what we're really here to do. So many people spend their lives stuck in freeze, stuck in trauma, and not able to bring our gifts fully online. And this is the time right now for women particularly to bring our gifts online and to be able to move forward. So when we unpack trauma through gentle practices like clarity breathwork and somatic experiencing, the amazing thing about trauma that's exciting is that on the other side of that freeze, that dissociation, when we come back online, we bring so much greater awareness, including what some term spiritual awakening. Because to the depth that we descended through the trauma into the underworld, and many of us as women have had to go through the initiation of that doorway, when we unlock it in a safe and sacred way that we can integrate, then we can really rise in who we really are, bring our Wonder Woman powers online, and lead a revolution like you're doing. You know, you're like leading a revolution. And a part of that is going to that point where you were able to meet, what happened to you and bring the love and the compassion and healing and nurturing to it and transmute it and alchemize it into the gold of what you're here to do in the world. Right. So then the trauma becomes an incredible gift rather than a curse, something that's holding us back. It becomes something that drives us to bring the feminine healing into a world that is in great need of feminine healing right now.
Right. And you are such a master in doing that. I've watched you in action so many times, and people going through miracles, people rebirthing themselves, and really you can see even in the way they show, in the way they look, they come in a certain way, they come out glowing. Yeah. So yeah, this work is amazing. And I know that you are all over the world doing these workshops constantly. I don't know if there's any one person more dedicated than you to this work.
Mm.
So yeah, you definitely walk in this talk.
Oh, thank you for that reflection. Yeah. It is miraculous, because I want to add to that, like, we can talk about our trauma or our experience through traditional forms of therapy. But they're showing in trauma healing now that we don't heal through the mind. We don't heal through telling the story over and over again, which can actually reinforce the whole identification of victim and trauma and keep us in a vibration that is not true to who we really are. So when we have an opportunity to share it and be heard in a space of unconditional love and witnessing, which is, I believe, what's really needed. It's like the system waits until there's someone that can lovingly hold space and witness the pain, whatever the person went through, and then lay down and breathe. And that's the true miracle, is when we go from the mind and we turn it over to the breath, and we turn it over to the greater cosmos, because we're so much greater than this human identity that we cast ourselves in. So the breath is the bridge to our greater spiritual self, our greater nature, where we come from, the stardust of which we are made of, and the ancient lineages that we come from. So the breath starts to bring everything online and light everything up, and it helps us get in touch with our unconscious. And that's really important, because it's in the unconscious that we're holding most of the barriers that are holding us back. And unconscious means it's unconscious. We don't even know it's there. But what the breath does is it shines the light. It's like a searchlight that goes into the unconscious to uncover the places where we're holding on. And many times people are very surprised, because they didn't even know that was what was holding them back, or that was the memory, or they'll have a visitation, from a grandmother or from an ancestral spirit, or they'll remember other lives, other times. The breath is just simply miraculous and mystical. And so it transcends our mental, logical, linear, masculine thinking model, and opens us to the intuitive, feminine vastness. It's amazing, as you know, as you are yourself a living example of the miracle of all the healing that you've done, but particularly the breath work.
Exactly. And I have personally done a lot of healing, but the breath was almost like it connected all the dots. It integrated all the different parts into something that I couldn't understand with my mind. Neither did I try, because it's mystical and mysterious. It's really working with spirit. It's working with the chi, and really surrendering to the body knows how to heal itself, right?
The body, the spirit, and then we may get information in a breathwork session also about, say, our higher purpose. We may receive spiritual guidance that perhaps we went through a particular experience that was difficult in order to bring a teaching through about the unraveling of that experience, which is your case. You went through and took on a certain level of experience, right? Because you were here to alchemize it and to turn it around and to give it back as a gift. And that's really the task of the bodhisattva, is to come into this dimension, take on some trauma, some wounding, work through it, and then turn it around and give it back as a gift.
Right. That's exactly the alchemical process, that we either go there, making the choice to go there and then harness all the gifts that it provides, or we just remain unconscious in victimhood consciousness and
stuck in it. And part of that can be a protection from our system that is millions of years old. Protection to freeze, to shut down, to not move until the threat of danger is gone. And, animals will move through that pretty quickly, but human beings can spend a lifetime. And it may be protecting us from feeling the feelings that we couldn't feel at that time, including, for some of us, murderous rage around a violation. And we don't want to feel that. We certainly don't want to act that out on anyone. We want to remain safe, nor do we want to be swept away in that feeling of powerlessness and helplessness and, overwhelm. But it is through safely facing these feelings in a held, contained environment, like can happen in the Clarity Breathwork workshops, that women are able to face those, and men as well, it's not just for women, can face these deeper layers and bring love and compassion and healing and be the space where we can witness, because for some of us, horrendous things have happened. And we don't want to deny some of the atrocities that happen, that are still happening today. There are so many. But when we can face them with compassion and bring the light of forgiveness to ourselves and to how far lost we've become in relation to the feminine, then we can start to turn it around. And then we get a lot of power and a lot of energy, like you have right now, to turn it around and to create a movement that can really transform our world right now.
Right. And we all have it. We all have been through trauma. We cannot ignore it, no matter where you are from the world. Trauma is being part of your life. But how do you work with it to turn it around, to turn it into heat, right?
That's right. And we don't have to stay stuck in it. And I think that's really important, because when you are in the trauma vortex, when you get triggered, and you might have done years of work on it and think, oh, I'm relatively free, and then something happens, and then you get re-triggered into a trauma vortex, and you can tell yourself the story, I'm never going to be able to get beyond this. This is always going to be the way that it is. This is the way the world is. This is the way men are. And we can get pulled back into the Maya of seeing through the lens of that trauma. And that's why we need all these modalities and this summit, to help each other remember that it's just another layer of clearing. It's not a place where we need to stay stuck. We may need to visit, but it's not where we're going to live. It's okay, there's another layer coming up. There's another opportunity to see through it. And then there's all these incredible modalities that are emerging right now, which I'm sure are all over this show, this summit, to help us keep navigating through it. And just right on the other side of that trauma vortex, according to somatic experiencing and my 25 years of experience with healing work, right on the other side of the trauma vortex is the healing vortex, is the miracle zone, is the magic of an ancient grievance becoming a present love, as the Course in Miracles would say, as an opportunity to, I know when I've faced my deepest trauma, the next moment, the experience of light, the experience of oneness, was right there for me. So if we can just keep going, and I just want the women on this show to know that we don't have to stay stuck in suffering. If we are committed to doing our work, if we are committed to doing the work that must be done and facing the things that we must face, and stop running away and avoiding and numbing ourselves and blaming the outside. It's another thing that women can get into. And anger is important. It's important to get in touch with our anger and our rage, but not to stay there, to transform it into the fire of the passion to liberate all women and girls. I'm just deeply passionate about the liberation of women and girls, which is, by the way, the liberation of men.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're so intertwined, right? You cannot dive into the depth of joy and pleasure if you haven't visited those places of all the other emotions on the other spectrum, right? They're all part of the wholeness of the human experience.
That's right. And I think in a divided culture and in a patriarchal culture, the suppression of difficult emotions and numbing and medicating against difficult emotions, so that if difficult emotions arise, we're so quick to throw medication at it, to suppress it, to hide it. And if we can allow the sacred mess of it all, you know, and allow ourselves to fall apart, because we have to fall apart, basically. We have to fall apart to allow a deeper rising. And yet we're so conditioned to move away from difficulty or falling apart. What if we could go towards it?
Right.
What if we could just go towards it and welcome it and see that we can trust that alchemical process. We can face it. We can breathe into it.
Right. And it's
There we go. Just right there.
Yeah, what you've been talking about, it's our cultural almost a response to pain. We run away from pain, and pain has its own medicine. And you know when I felt it the most? Obviously giving birth, where pain is so overwhelming, but so powerful also.
Yes.
There's so much surrender and openness in it. And also when I've done my tattoo, you know, it took hours of pain.
Painful, right.
You know, I went into a meditation with it, and I really just let myself dive into pain. And it's powerful. It's amazing. We you know, this is also part of our human experience to have pain. And I'm not saying that you can't take you know, a pill if you've got a headache. I'm not, you know, if a pill will.
Right, exactly. Right. That's true too. Not to over suffer with pain, but to also allow pain to be our teacher and reveal to us. Many traditions, like the Red Road traditions of the sun dancer or the all-night ceremony, there's a sacrifice, right? There's a sacrifice to deepen us into what they call in the Red Road grandfather, grandmother, great spirit, you know, as if we can use the pain to keep opening rather than, you know, it's really the avoidance of pain that causes us to suffer so much.
Right.
The avoidance of our difficult emotions that's causing a global suffering right now.
Right. And you can't really avoid it because it will keep knocking on your door. If it hasn't been resolved, it will come out in one way or another. And if you stuff it in, then it takes so much vital energy from you to keep it at bay. So it's really is the best for you to make that choice to feel it in order to heal it.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Well said.
And I would like you to speak about women in service, because this is part of the discussion topic, and I know that that you're passionate about that part.
Yeah. Well, it's you know, my parents were both feminists, my father and my mother. They were part of the early feminist movement. And so I was blessed to grow up with that and be entrenched in that, and go to university and study women's studies. And you know, I found that in feminism, there's a lot of focus on patriarchy and a lot of focus on sexism and the isms, racism, and I found that became my whole world, you know. And so there was a point where I thought, you know, I want to focus on the world I want to create. I want to focus on being part of a movement that is ushering in a world that and I think feminism is extremely important, so I'm not making it wrong. I'm just saying that my shift was to hold a bigger vision of kind of the awakening and the return of the sacred feminine in our culture for women and men, because actually men need to rise also. Our brothers are, and our world leaders are so wounded. You know, women were actually doing pretty well. We're actually like really healing ourselves and growing and evolving. And we also want to hold space, you know, not that it's our job to caretake them, but for the masculine to heal as well. And I think it's one of the biggest things happening historically right now, besides the environmental crisis, which is number one. But the environmental crisis is also an issue of not honoring the feminine, not honoring the earth, not taking care of our resources. And so the rise of the feminine is one of the greatest evolutionary leaps of consciousness that we are making right now. And it's not just for women, it's in men and women. And it is time for women to step into leadership, but not from a masculine model of leadership, but from a feminine model. And I don't think we've even known really what that even means. And we're just learning and discovering now, what does it mean to be a leader from the feminine, which means not to override, not to burn out, but to serve from that feminine base. And it's what's needed. Everyone's talking about it. We know the Dalai Lama said it, and that it's Western woman because of our privilege and our education. And we've heard in the ancient Vedic scriptures that there will come a time when the minds of men will go insane, and it will look like the end is near. And the only energy powerful enough to turn it around is the Divine Mother. And she will begin incarnating in forms and structures all over the planet to help bring about a global shift. So this is our mythology, you know, and she will do it through pleasure, which is also really, really important as women. And when I was in the caves of Mary Magdalene in southern France last year, the teaching was so much about restoring our foundation of pleasure as women. And there's a wonderful story from Daniel Odier, who wrote the book Desire and Tantric Quest, where he worked with a real Devi in the village in India. And he tells the story in the Vedic scriptures also that the world was being destroyed by a black phallus, a lingam, that was bringing destruction all over the world, famine, war, storms, and the gods tried everything they could do to stop it, and they were powerless. And then they remembered the Divine Mother, who they had cast out and decided was not important. And they went to the Divine Mother and bowed at her feet and said, "Please forgive us and help save us." And she instantly took on the form of a sky dancer, a Dakini, and she sat on the black phallus with her yoni. And in that moment, the masculine remembered pleasure, and all the war and destruction and famine ceased. So we are pleasure. We have such capacity for pleasure, which is so much of your work, is returning us to our orgasmic essence. And so I think that as we move forward in leadership, that it's really important to not do it from a place of a burden or having to prove ourselves, or having to win love, or overdrive ourselves, but to do it from pleasure. That it is our pleasure to give and to love and to serve and to take care of our planet and our children and our species, and actually to support our men to rise up and do the right thing. This is the feminine leadership to me.
Right. You said it so well, so well. And I also, from my understanding, is that healing happens through the feminine energy, because that's where there is movement and change and flow. And men, to access their healing, they also need to tap into their feminine energy, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I see so many men. I have a lot of men in my practice even that, you know, come to their 60s, come to time of retiring, and they're, you know, CEOs and high profile, powerful men, and they are lacking this feminine. So it's all they want is this more softer, feminine way of being, and needing to balance that. I think, you know, men need to balance that feminine and masculine just as much as women need to balance our feminine and masculine. And in some cultures, we see that there's been a reversal. You know, men have become much more feminine, and women have become more masculinely driven, you know, and to allow more of that balancing inside of ourselves of both of those energies is, I think, what allows us to come into our wholeness more.
Right, right. And that support that we can give each other is really what what will heal this planet, to bring that peace and harmony between the masculine and the feminine. Because, you know, you've mentioned the feminist movement, and I also feel that it was such an important milestone in the evolution of our humanity.
Yes.
They kind of, you know, they had to bulge forward and say, hey, this is working
Yes.
for us and we are not less than you. But it's really not about competition, and it's not about being like men, because we are not. We are very
Right.
fundamentally different, not in essence, not in soul level, but in body function, and in the way our energy moves, and in the way we even physically build. We cannot ignore it. We're different, and it's beautiful, because that's what creates that beautiful chemistry and beautiful completion of those energies. So
Right.
yeah, I really totally resonate with you wanting to bring it to another place, which is, how can we rise from the feminine without competing with the masculine, without overriding?
Right. And without dividing against,
Exactly.
you know, because whenever we are divided against, we're in duality, we're in polarity. And so how can we, you know, see that we're fully interconnected and a part of the same? You know, because if we really, I just having a vision right now of rising up out into space and looking down at the planet. And it is literally one organism. It is one planet. And if we are in division and at war with each other, and we have, I mean, the masculine and feminine have in a way been at war with each other and divided against each other. And that is a war that it's time to come to an end. And it doesn't mean there's not going to be anger and conflict and challenge as we work out our difficulties and as we rise, because sometimes there is a need for Kali. There is certainly a need for Kali right now. There is a need for an enormous wake-up call. And I think of images that I've seen of Amazonian women coming out of the bush and standing in front of the tractors in just sheer force of no. And in a way, you know, women, we need to stand up right now and say no. There's this other story from Alice Walker where she went down to the Amazon. She was doing a lot of work with the Amazon people. And the women surrounded her one day and said, Alice, what's wrong with American women? And Alice said, what do you mean? And they said, well, we understand in our culture that men are the destructive force. So when we need trees, when to build houses or for fuel, we send the men out to get trees. And when we need meat to feed on, we send the men out to take the animals. But it's the women's job to tell the men when to stop. Why haven't the women of America told the men to stop? Right. And that's a powerful question. And of course, it comes from about 2,000 years of suppression of our voices and our power and our conditioning that it's not safe and it's not okay. And that we must understand and yet be committed to doing the work, to reclaiming our voices, to reclaiming our no, because we have a huge responsibility to do that.
Right. And clear boundaries are also very important for our well-being and wholeness. And I think that this is also something that we really need to step into and know what works for us personally or collectively and what not.
Right. This is so much of my work right now, and it was something that I did want to bring to the call for the listeners, is this restoration of self-protective boundaries. It's a big part of trauma healing in the somatic experiencing work, the restoration of self-protective boundaries. And these boundaries may have been stepped on already in the womb, mistreatment of the mother, and certainly as we grew up in this culture. And all the ways that we strategize and negotiate around over giving, over caretaking, not saying no, the ways we have been violated. And so my work right now in this latest work that I'm doing on the priestess embodiment, which is starting in Hawaii soon, that I'm so excited about, is reclaiming our energy field, that we don't need to keep a violator in our energy field. There are women in this summit and in this call who have been raped and violated and mistreated, and yet we don't need to let that stay in our energy field. And for many of us, we'll just keep replaying it over and over again, and then use it as a reason to shut down, to pull away, to be angry. But if we do the work that we're talking about, and really to sweep out these energies and to reclaim our purity, our sexual purity. You know, many of the virgins were simply women of purity. And in our essence, we are pure, divine, and whole. Our wombs are pure, divine, and whole. When I was in Magdalene's cave, the first day, she showed me how beautiful is the vagina, how beautiful is our yoni, and that women are here to create pleasure, to tend the hearth, to nurture, to receive pleasure, to be in bliss through our bodies. The second day of my initiation was the cleaning of the yoni all over the world. And it was so intense because there was so much sickness and wounding and sadness and anger and pain and disconnect and violation. And all day it was just, we were cleaning the sexual organs and the womb of woman. And then in the third day, there was like a full initiation into embodying the wholeness of sacred feminine and the purity and the power of who we are. So we need to do that work to sweep out and release the trespasses, the violations, the violence, the images, the programming, the conditioning, and to occupy our entire beautiful energy field, which is enormous around us, and to, take sovereignty in this space, and to return to the place of the bride of our own hearts, to take up the throne of the queen in our own hearts, and to release any thieves that have been in the castle of our own dignity and royalty. And then if we're in a relationship, let the masculine show up as the king. And if we're not in a relationship, then allow that space for that king to show up, whether it's our own sacred masculine or whether it's out in the world. And only we can do that work. No one can do that work for us. They can help us. They can hold space for us. They can give us tools like clarity breathwork, somatic experiencing, your version of breathwork. But no one can do it except ourselves. And just that choosing of that, I am worthy to heal. I am worthy to clear out what happened to me in the past and not let it dictate who I am now or in my future, because that's us giving our power away. Yes, that happened. Yes, that was difficult. Yes, there's healing needed, but I will not let that control how I live my life and how I show up to give my gift in the world. And that's our opportunity as women right now.
Right. To come out of victimhood consciousness and into being victorious and into standing and embodying our right for living life of joy and pleasure and content and all that comes with.
All that comes with it, and believing that that's there for us. I had a teacher recently share with me this concept of unimaginable happiness. That what life wants for us is our unimaginable happiness. It's a happiness we could not have even imagined for ourselves. And we can experience it in ecstatic moments on plant medicine journeys and clarity breathwork sessions. And to, rather than all of this suffering and all of the power we've given to the suffering, can we rise out of the suffering and choose our unimaginable happiness and create the world, the communities, the safety for our children that is our divine right and responsibility.
Right, because what happens out there is a reflection of the state of the collective. So if you really want to make a change in the world, start with yourself.
That's right. That's right. Do the work inside to ignite, to ignite. A lot of what we do in the clarity breath work and the priestess embodiment is we reclaim our energy centers and we start to ignite. I mean, the power of our yonis and our root chakras is immense, which is why it had to be suppressed by the church in order to be controlled. But when we start to reawaken and activate the light codes, the kundalini, the root chakra, the second chakra, as we call back the goddess in all of our centers of energy and ignite that light body, that priestess body, that greater feminine vessel that we are, and claim it, we just become unstoppable.
Exactly. Unstoppable. And especially when it's a conscious force that is united through sisterhood. I feel that this is a very important component for the healing of the universe, because it's just, we are
Right.
all in this together. All our wombs are connected, right?
When we channel this life force energy together, and that's the task is the shadow side of the feminine, our jealousy, our competition, our criticism, our ill wishes of each other, it's like really showing up in that and taking responsibility for the mismanagement or misuse of our own energy and turning it around into the right use of our power and our energy, which is not against anything, but is for life. Woman is for life. And then it's unstoppable. It's like, for years I had a full moon circle of women, and every full moon we would come together and do ritual and dance and movement and practices. And I mean, every woman was just popping into her greater self and attracting her right work, her right partnership, her right home, and then her children. And it was 10 years of just like, wow, when women come together and focus with one another, we can birth miracles. And it's so true. I was just listening to Lynn McTaggart, who wrote The Field and then wrote a book called The Power of Eight, which is men and women, but it's about forming groups of 8 and intending for each other. And they did all this scientific research, and they saw that when we intend for each other, that the one being intended for has huge blessings and boons in their lives. And then the people that are doing the intending have huge blessings and boons, often even more for the person they're intending for. And so if we as sisters can gather together in intentionality with the power of the moon and nature and these things that have been pushed out by patriarchal, and call this back in, what kind of transformation could start to take place personally, collectively, and globally? And the stakes are really high right now. So when I think when we don't do the work, we suffer even more, because we know that somehow we're not showing up all the way. And when we do the work, grace comes in, and then we start to be guided on this path of unimaginable happiness, and the support and the assistance comes to do the healing, which may be very challenging at times. I mean, I think part of the initiations that the feminine has to go through, some of them are really strong and intense, as you and I both know, including the fear of going crazy, of losing your mind, of being so overwhelmed by emotion that you can't handle it, of facing the just facing the destruction and devastation that has happened to the planet. It's difficult to show up and to face the grief and the pain and the despair and the fear of what's going to happen. And yet the other choice is to suffer and to try to hide and to medicate and to avoid and to run. And that's an even worse place to be than to have the support to meet it all.
Exactly.
So thank you. I just want to thank you for doing this work and putting so much passion and energy into it, and gathering all these speakers and creating this platform. And just more power to you and to all of you women that are listening right now, to know that you're not listening by accident to this right now, that there is a call and that it's only going to become louder and more insistent. And that when we answer the call, that's when the miracles start to happen. The grace starts to happen. And there are so many incredible healers coming forth right now, modalities, medicines from the jungle and the desert, the medicine of breath to help us birth this new cycle together.
Wow, yes. Thank you for being you and doing the sacred work that you do. I know that you dedicated your life to heal so many people and really spreading that work. And I would like you to talk a little bit about what are you going to do in Hawaii, because this sounds very delicious.
I do want to add about that service part that you just named again. It's like, I have always felt that I incarnated to serve the Divine Mother, who is the supreme being. And in pretty much a lot of traditions, when we look back far enough before patriarchal writing covered it, the sacred feminine, the Divine Mother, was known as the supreme force in the universe. And I also just want to share that when I was in the cave of Mary Magdalene, you know, it was just such a potent initiation. I would love to take a group of women there. But I just saw a painting in a museum, a famous painting, the Assumption of Mary Magdalene. And it is said that when she left Jesus and went to southern France, that the angels picked her up and brought her to heaven 7 times a day, because otherwise she would not have been able to continue to do her work and bear what had happened. So we can be lifted up 7 times a day, or however many times we need to be lifted up to heaven to remember. And there are lots of ways to be lifted up to heaven. So one of them is definitely Hawaii, because the gateway of Kealakekua Bay is known as Gateway to the Gods. It is a portal to the divine. It's sacred geometry shows that it is one of the 10 top power vortices for interdimensional travel and manifestation. So we'll be in a stunning retreat center right on Kealakekua Bay, where the dolphins also come in pretty much daily, and we'll have guided dolphin encounters with lots of reverence for that species and what they have to teach us. And we also have an indigenous Hawaiian priestess who will start so that we are honoring the land. We go to very many sacred vortexes, including Bali and Costa Rica and Europe, and we always want to honor the indigenous people that are there and follow the protocol. So Eolani will open the way for us and allow us to do this work of igniting that greater light body of who we are, and clearing out the victimization, the shame, the foundation of pain and suffering and trauma as women, and turning that towards pleasure, towards abiding in our true value, and receiving initiations from Pele, the goddess of our fire, our creativity, receiving initiations from the heart of the Magdalene, which is the initiation of the Holy Bride in our hearts, and then activating our Isis, our greater vision of what's possible for us, and just stepping more and more into the priestess, the medicine woman, the shaman, the leader, the creatrix, so that we can move into 2020, because I think 2020's got some pretty big things in store for us.
2020.
And 2020 is one of the visions of how do we want a vision? How do we want to move forward at this point in our evolution as women? So I'm really excited about it and feeling the power of it, both for Hawaii and for Bali in later in the year in May.
Right. And if you're interested to work with Ashana, she does workshops all over the world. She's constantly traveling, and you can look at her schedule and hop into one of the amazing places that she visits.
Come
And
to Pachamama, where we met,
yes.
and people have life-changing, over and over again experiences, not just through clarity breath work, but through all the other things in that echo village of Pachamama.
Yeah, Pachamama is a place of such high frequency, and it's almost like the pool of energy there is so high that just being in that pool without even doing anything transforms you. Never mind doing the amazing work that is offered there on so many levels. So yes,
you really became a medicine woman there. I watched you go through your initiation over several years, and to become this very powerful healer, medicine woman, priestess that you are now. And I'm just so delighted to be with you today.
yeah, we are heading towards the end of our time together, and I know that you've got a beautiful gift to share with the audience. So maybe you want to tell them what it's about?
Yes, I'm offering all of you my signature breathwork CD that has sold thousands of copies around the world. It's called Healing Yourself with Breath. And it will give you an opportunity to experience in a guided, safe, gentle breathwork journey how to use your breath to open doorways for yourself and to also heal and clear out. And so you can pick that up. It's a free offering. And if you're interested in any of my other offerings about the sacred feminine, I have a wonderful CD around sacred feminine, healing the feminine, priestess initiation, and many other downloads and CDs on our website, which is claritybreathwork.com. And you can also find my own website at ashanasolaris.com.
Now, I have to say that Ashanna is a master of guided meditations. And when I say master, I mean top master. She channels the meditations in such a profound, transforming way that you definitely want to grab that free offer that she gives you and go through the breath work. It is transformative. It is empowering and unbelievable. So really take a good use of it. And yeah, so if a woman wants to find you, then you said your websites, and you are offering breathwork where in the world?
Well, our next big retreat after Hawaii will be in Pachamama. We offer our levels 1 through 5 retreats every January and February. And then we go to Bali for Bali Spirit Fest at the end of March. And we have our whole training 1 through 5 in Bali in April. And then we go to Omega Institute in New York. So that's a wonderful place to come for our 5-day level 1. And then we'll be in Europe, in Sweden, at the Global Inspiration Conference, and offering our whole training in Ibiza, Spain, in September. So that's just a little taste of what's ahead.
Thank you, Ashana. I love you so much, and
Thank you,
for being you,
Nunaisi.
and thank you for all the wonderful work that you're sharing with the world. You're making the world such a better place.
Thank
And I honor
you.
you for that. And yeah, and I miss
May
you.
we all, I miss you too. May we all keep rising in this incredible feminine downpouring that's coming in right now and upwelling from the earth and from the oceans and from all directions. May we receive her empowerment. Thank you.
Aho.
Aho. Namaste.
Namaste. And thank you everyone for watching. Until the next time, lots of love. Ciao for now.